Dr. O.
Hey, and I'm Dr. Amy, and we have Smoke here today. He's been under some rehab for quite some time, but we can still see the effects of some nerve damage that he's had to his shoulder.
Right. What happened was he got kicked or ran into something right here at the point of the shoulder. And
as a response, because the nerve was no longer working, it was inflamed, he lost muscle.
because there's two ways that we can lose muscle in a body. One is to make the muscle inactive or not use it for any period of time. Usually that'll take 6 to 8 weeks. But we know that when the horse moves, it takes every muscle, every ligament, every tendon.
So a horse can't not use a muscle?
Not use a muscle. So the fact that he's lost this muscle tells us that it's because of lack of innervation.
Yeah.
Loss of innervation, nerve damage.
All right. Oftentimes we'll see nerve damage in horses in other areas. Sometimes you'll see it in their hind end, and all of a sudden they have this really funny looking hind end where one side's dished and the other side's round. I've seen horses that have lost muscle all the way down the back as well.
They have atrophy of the muscles on the back, and their spine shows up. It's a hunter's bone.
But only one-sided.
Right.
That's a little strange. And what usually ensued was some kind of traumatic injury, playing in the pasture or getting run into by something.
Repetitive use injuries. Chronic saddle fit issues.
Can occasionally do those on one side, yes. But what we have to remember is then the goal is to get the innervation back to that muscle, to let the brain know that the muscle's there so that it sends motor function to that muscle and makes it work again.
Nerve transplant?
Not in horses.
Okay.
But chiropractic and acupuncture can help this in a really big way. Smoke's getting a little upset with us.
He's a little antsy.
Can you stand still, mister? You must smell the treats in the pocket. Yeah, acupuncture works really well at helping to re-stimulate this area, to give sensory input to these fibers so that the brain then sends motor function back to that area. It's a really nice way to get some information to and from that area at a routine rate so that we don't exceed the metabolic rate of the tissue.
So if we were going to use something that had a high metabolic demand, like a TENS unit.
Right. Maybe we should define metabolic demand for our clients, for our audience. When we're talking about metabolism right now, we're talking about each individual cell that are within the muscle structure and fibers of this area of his shoulder. Each individual cell has to be able to take in nutrients, convert them into energy, build proteins, and then excrete the waste products. It has to be able to use oxygen and glucose to produce that protein, and then it has to be able to get rid of the byproducts, which are usually metabolites, we call them. Other forms of chemistry, chloride, excess sodium, things like that have to go back out. So,
and it all takes energy, or ATP.
Most of it does, yes. And in order to do that, we only want to do it at the rate that these cells can effectively do it so that they actually build more protein than they give us in waste products. If we exceed the metabolic rate of that tissue, using up more energy than we build, we will never get that tissue to get bigger.
So any therapeutic method that causes a net decrease in ATP is not a very good therapy for this type of injury.
That's correct. We're going to end up, if for instance we took him out and rode him in a 6-hour trail ride or even swimming, with this injury would be energy using or catabolic.
Right.
As opposed to being anabolic, which means building.
But a therapy like a true cold laser that increases cellular ATP
would be a great way to help
Rehab.
this area rehab.
And we could use a true cold laser 3 or 4 minutes every couple hours, and that would increase cellular ATP to the area. It would help these tissues heal.
That's true.
But if we use
anything that produces heat, what we end up doing is cooking some cells.
Cooking cells, and remember that in order for heat to be produced, we have to take ATP and turn it into ADP.
Right, which is what is that heat given off. The problem is when you have heat coming off of tissue, you're actually causing, when we cook food, we change the proteins. We are making those proteins into not what the cell has to use to create DNA, but we are creating something else. And right now we want to, as efficiently as possible, create new DNA to help those cells reproduce and split and build so that they can build tissue.
Another therapy that would really help an injury like this would be an alpha stem, which is a very, very mild current. And we could actually put some X's on here. And the mild current, microcurrent, 1/100,000th of a TENS unit, which you can see your muscles twitch with a TENS unit. But this is really minor. We put the X across here. It would increase the current to this area. It would help the brain realize that there is a muscle there that still needs to be fed. And the alpha stem is such a low current, it actually increases cellular ATP.
It works very similar to some of the function of acupuncture. Acupuncture is a little more specific and really needs to be in the hands of a professional. Acupuncturing this area about once a day for a week or so will actually shorten the recovery time on this injury. And we would see the growth rate of those cells and reuse of that in a very short amount of time.
Right. And this is what his normal shoulder should look like. He says, I want to show everybody my good shoulder. I don't want to show them my bad shoulder. So what we can do is, even though our horse had a major injury, a gait-altering injury, through routine acupuncture, chiropractic care to keep his body healthy,
good nutrition with enough protein to help him build those cells,
essential fatty acids,
so that the cells can talk to each other, and being careful not to overdo it so that we are not damaging tissue, we can help harmonize his health, help him move normally and not develop more compensating factors, and get back to a normal horse life.